All right. Well, it looks like it is just about 1 o'clock. There I am. Looks like it's just about 1 o'clock Mountain Time. So let's get started. Well, welcome everyone. This is DES 344, Advanced Print Production. And today is sorry, today is Lisa moving around screens on her window so she can see her chat box. Woo, today's the Tuesday. But yeah, so today is our first session of our first week of our 10th mod of 2017. And today is also Tuesday, October 3rd. Can you guys believe it? October 3rd. I know I certainly cannot. And there's a little part of me that wishes that it was still September, just because it feels like the year is going very quickly. But here we are, Mod 10, October, and yeah, off to a new start in many ways. So, welcome to our student, or student, as the case may be, who is here in person, and then also welcome to everybody who is watching via video. As usual, I know that time zones, scheduling, the fact that it's October tend to kind of make things a little bit tricky for us all to connect at the same time and in the same place, look at our screens at the same time. But, know that we are thinking of you. We are wanting to make you feel included and part of the process. And as always, if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me and, let me know, and we can work it out in a lot of ways. And one kind of cool thing, I want to say a special hello to everyone who just recently finished up DES 370. Yeah, we we had 4 weeks together, and I think for almost the majority of the class, we're kind of just like picking up and continuing. So I was looking at my class roster this morning, actually. Well, or no, yesterday, Monday, whenever the week started, which would be yesterday. And I was going down the line, and I was like, yep, 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 okay. And then a couple of people, I was like, ooh, yay, a new person. But yeah, so for all of you who have either the blessing or the curse of having me 2 mods in a row, kind of fun. We're just going to kind of continue on in a lot of ways. And in some ways, advanced logo design, advanced print production, they do a bit go hand in hand. Not only because they have the word advanced in them, but also because they kind of hint at the fact that you all are getting to a level where you are doing advanced work. You should be doing things that are fairly professional in quality, or if they're not quite there with just like 2 or 3 tweaks, they could be. So it's kind of a cool thing to see that you've made it this far, and also that there is somewhat, hopefully, you're feeling it, a light at the end of the tunnel as far as what's next. What's life going to look like post being in school, as potentially a working professional, as potentially a freelancer, all those sorts of things. So I feel like whenever I get the honor, and I will say honor, not meaning any sense of irony, whenever I get the honor of teaching a 300 level course, 300 or 400, it's always extra exciting because I'm like, whoa, these students that I'm having right now, like next year at this time, like they're going to hardly remember being in school because like, they're going to be done. They're going to be, out doing their own things. And like, what an exciting, kind of time this is, because this is, kind of nearing the end of a season in a lot of ways. And then kind of starting you in something new. So always kind of exciting in a lot of ways. All right. Well, you've all seen me, I am human, so I will turn off my camera, since as if you've had me last mod too, seeing myself and talking at the same time, very distracting, and also very draining on the old internet. But yeah, good to see everybody. We will check in every session, so you can always make sure to do that. All right, so let's stop the video and jump back into the slides and see where we are headed today. All right, so we are going to begin as usual with a little bit of introduction to everything. So I'm going to introduce you to myself. Like I said, for probably most of you it'll be a review, but that's okay. Maybe it'll be a new fun fact that you learn. Then we're going to take an overview of the course. We're going to just look into some things that are important, are good things to be aware of. This is a course that has somewhat recently been redesigned, so I want to make sure that you guys are taking full advantage of all of the cool new things that are built into every Independence University course that undergoes a redesign. So kind of giving you the tour of the classroom, so to speak. Then we're going to talk about kind of setting the stage. This is, I think, one of the very unique courses in the graphic arts program because it is called Advanced Print Production. And print production kind of implies something like you use a printer and it is a physical thing. And we're a fully online course. So there's kind of going to be some interesting intricacies that we want to be aware of as we go into this course. So we're going to kind of go over that to help us set the stage, help us prepare. And then we're going to talk printing time. We're going to talk about printing, printing processes, kind of mechanisms, hopefully give you guys some good resources to check into and get into the discussion for this week, as well as, assignment and assessment and all those things. So that's where we're headed for the next hour and 50-ish minutes. So it should be good. All right, oops, if I can advance the slide. So first off, introductions. Hi, as usual. I know you just saw me. Here's me again. This was another hair color ago. But yeah, like I said, my name is Lisa, and I will be your instructor. This is little Ruby Joy, who is in my arms. She's currently napping, so I think we finally figured out correct schedule of her getting enough exercise about an hour ago, so now she can sleep for the next 2 hours and not get antsy. But yeah, so we are from just outside of Chicago. I have been with Independence University for over 6 years now. So I've been teaching, teaching that whole time, or in some different capacity within the department. So I love online learning. I love online education. I'm actually in the what I'm hoping are the final stages of my doctorate in distance education. And I'm studying kind of how people are using the internet to teach graphic design. So kind of essentially what we're doing in this program is a lot of what's motivated me to go study these ideas a little bit more. And been working on that for about four-ish years now. So all that to say, I completely understand what it means to be an online student, kind of this interesting space of going to school, yet really having that mean just like opening your laptop or sitting at your computer or something, not, physically going to a new space. I think it's really interesting. I think it's a really smart way in lots of ways to go kind of get an education. But I know too that it's also incredibly challenging because you take school everywhere with you. And so, when life happens, it's not that you can get away from it and be in school. It's that, school enters into the picture too. So kind of all that to say, I know what a challenge it is. And so if you have any, issues, difficulties, you get sick, children get sick, weather happens, hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully we got that out of the system. But yeah, so if anything happens, please just let me know. I'm more than willing to be quite flexible regarding deadlines, timelines, feedback, whatever you need, so that you all can really succeed in this course and, have fun in the process too, not have to be stressed too much of the time. A little stress is good. But if we can minimize that as much as possible, like that's kind of my second main goal. My first main goal is that you'll learn. Second main goal is that, you know, you'll have some fun in the process overall. All right, so here is the good old map. And for those of you who this is the second mod you're with me, you're probably like, does she not have anything new? I actually don't really. It's a pretty sad thing. I'm a little bit boring at times, I think, especially in these intros, and mostly because it kind of never gets old to me. So, so I think that's why every class I'm always like, let's get out the map and see where people are from. And as you guys may know, if I've done this before, I still continue to have this dream that at some point I will have two students who actually are in the same town. And they will only realize that because they were in my class and they both marked their points on the map. But has yet to happen. But it's okay. It's only been 6 years. Still plenty of time potentially to find a match. But yeah, so here's our map. So if you want to, if you are here synchronously, meaning that you have the ability to mark on the map as you are watching. If you want to just go up and use your annotation tools and put like a little X, a little check, a little circle, a little whatever you would like, scribble, kind of where you are geographically, that would be great. And so we can get kind of a picture of where our class is located. So yeah, if you're watching via video, unfortunately you can't participate, but you can get to watch this piece of kind of performance art that will unfold before your very eyes. As you will see, things get added to the map and just see what's going to happen. Let's see, my internet does not allow me to interact in Zoom. I am in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Oh my gosh, I know Cheyenne. Hey, we're having a moment now. So you're like right about here, I believe. Yeah, I actually spend some time every year in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, which is kind of like right here, northwest corner. And so to get there, I kind of do this little trek that takes me across Iowa, across Nebraska, the corner of Wyoming, and then I do Cheyenne, Laramie, and then cross the border somewhere in the mountains. So yeah, very cool. And I have this feeling whenever I hit Cheyenne that like I'm almost there. So so I have very warm feelings about Cheyenne and Laramie. It's like, oh yes. When by that point, you know, I've been in the car for like 15 hours. So it's like, okay, just a little bit more. And plus the scenery is just gorgeous, you know, as you see the wilds. So so you go 287. Boy, I actually have no idea. I know I go 80 and then yeah, then I turn off of 80. Yeah. I can give you geographic landmarks, but as far as what the roads are, I don't even know the numbers anymore. But yeah, so that's kind of how I know Cheyenne. And also, I did go to a Starbucks in downtown Cheyenne at one point, and I was just impressed at like the level of fanciness of the people there because I had, as I said, been in the car for a million hours. And so I was looking very traveled and I was like, wow, real people wearing clothes and having conversations and yeah, all these things. So anyway, there's probably too much information about Lisa's life, but always kind of fun. Let's see, it must have been during lunch on a weekday. Yeah, I think it actually was. Yeah, I was amazed. And it was also incredibly cool. Okay, so it looks like we have one student out west. Okay, not sure how to mark. I'm using my phone. Yeah, I don't know if you have annotation capability, but I feel like you're kind of over here. Is that where you're maybe? In this zone, maybe. Yeah, I feel like we also have a couple students that have been the carryover, so I'll say, hey, and then we have other people here and here and here, but I won't do that because that would just be weird. But yeah, so anyway, kind of good things to note is that even though, as you guys have probably heard, but definitely bears repeating, even though we are kind of stretched across, you know, the country coast to coast, north to south type deal. For the next 4 weeks, we are very connected as a classroom and as a classroom community. And even if you never make it to a live session, you're only watching recordings, I hope that you don't feel like you're not part of the team. Because in all honesty, like everybody is part of the team for the next 4 weeks. So we are all in this together. And my goal is to get everybody to succeed. And hopefully your goal as well is to succeed, for you, whatever that might look like. And also, to participate, to kind of build bonds to help your classmates out if necessary, or when is necessary, since I guarantee we're all probably going to need to have a little bit of help many times as well. So yes, looks like we have a good assortment, good bunch of geographic representation. Okay, so let's clear this and move right along. Oops. And there's Ruby, just like that, ready to make her contribution. Okay, so just a couple other kind of get to know you ish things. I know that we have 2 students who are here presently who can only communicate via chat box. Totally fine. So you don't have to feel the need to circle or otherwise interact with the screen. But yeah, I thought kind of a good icebreaker would be if you were a specialty print finish, which would you be? And again, this is like 100% graphic design nerdiness because who else talks about specialty print finishes or actually could probably recite which one they would like to be. But yeah, so just kind of another kind of icebreaker. What would you choose out of all of these? And if you're watching via video, what would you choose? You can add, you can contribute, just as much as anybody else. So let's see, we have letterpress, we have spot gloss, we have foil, we have embossing, or we have lamination. What would you be? Okay, looks like we got somebody saying embossing. Yeah, the 3D texture, which catches the light, has that great feel to it. Kind of understated though, I think, yeah. And we won't even bring up we won't even bring up, like multiple things going together, like a foil emboss. Oh, amazing. Or a spot gloss emboss foil treatment, whatever. Let's see, this is the first I've heard of specialty print finishes. Oh, only the beginning. Yes. Glad we can introduce you, and you will have a mind altering experience over the next 4 weeks for sure. But yeah, so letterpress, and actually I will say you were saying this is the first you've really heard of specialty print finishes. They're becoming quite common, and so I think that once we kind of unpack what they are, what they look like, I think everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, I totally got a Christmas card with that, or a wedding invitation with that, or that was on like the tag of a clothing item I purchased or something like that. So the cool thing about specialty is it is still very special, but we are in a place now where it's starting to be just a little bit more accessible, meaning it's not quite as expensive. So it's a cool thing. Okay, so let's see, between spot gloss and foil, oh yeah, too. I think for me, I'm definitely a foil still. I was flirting with the idea of being letterpress, but no, I just love the shininess of a good foil application. I'm a total sucker for like gold and rose gold foiling. Oh, I love it. I know it can be a little tacky, but I'm totally cool with it. So more is for sure more. But yeah, so kind of think through these. What would you be? What could you be? What do you like? And if this is kind of your first time even thinking about these things, yeah, just be kind of on the hunt, because guarantee once you start kind of thinking, once you start trying to see, you do see these things in lots of different places. Okay, so moving right along. This is actually where I got those different items. Designinstruct.com. /print/design/print/finishes. This is a good, this will be a good site for when you are working on your work this week, the projects. And so I'll actually post these slides into announcements so you guys can download them and kind of refer back if you need some things. Let's see, embossing reminds me of Braille. Yes, totally. Yeah. Yeah, the idea of like raised and then kind of adding that tactile element. Yeah, super cool. Okay, so we were going to do one more thing. I think we're going to buzz a little bit along. Well, let's do this again. If I were a font, what would I be? Font categories, what would you go with? And then we can kind of think what this would merge into. You know, I would be for sure a sans serif with a foil a foil finish. So a foiled sans serif. I don't know what that would translate to, but kind of cool. And yes, if you guys are watching, you know, via video, what would you choose if you were a font? Which category? And as you guys are thinking, another thing to think about too is, do you feel like, since you all have been in the program for a bit, do you feel like you know, your font choices have changed, your taste has changed? Have you kind of stuck with the same thing all the way? I always feel like whenever I teach kind of the 100 levels, it's like decorative script everybody, like nobody's gonna even touch a serif or a sans. And so it's kind of fun to just see what it's like. And I mean, I'm the same way. And then every once in a while, like this whole year, I've been obsessed with this font called Bifer. So I get on a decorative kick and just kind of go with it. But it's fun to see kind of how you change and progress as a designer, because it is, yeah, it's all part of being creative. Let's see, you've changed a ton. Yeah, and it's cool to, you know, just think about who you are now versus, you know, who you were a couple of years ago. It's hopefully you're changing, you're progressing, you know, new things are happening. Okay, so let's see, script in sans serif, serif. Yeah, and look and see, you guys are 300 levelers and everybody's picking out the stuff that guarantee when you're first a designer, you're like, Helvetica, what? Most boring font ever. And then, you know, once you see the nuance in a sans serif, it's like, oh, but some of them look like geometric shapes and others of them look like, you know, pointy and angular. So much variation. Yeah, you can see those objects, see those differences. Okay, so learning objectives for this week, we're actually not going to look at them here. We're going to look at them in the context of the course itself. But yeah, kind of fun to just, you know, have a little bit of icebreaker stuff, just to think about design in a different way. I think that, yeah, it's, especially with the pace of our scheduling, 4 weeks, you know, I love the 4-week mods in lots of ways, but I feel like we often can get into the mindset of like, oh my gosh, I'm always going to be behind and always stressed. And, you know, probably most of the time you might be a little behind. Most of the time I'm a little bit behind, but it's always good to just take a little bit of time and just kind of, you know, engage in the playful, creative side of design. Because one thing I've come to realize in a lot of ways, both as a teacher, as a student, as a working designer myself, is that if you want to create from a good, if you want to create good work, kind of the base of it is that you're creating from kind of a good spot personally. And, you know, you can create from stress for a while, but that often leads to burnout. And so if you can, you know, do whatever possible to kind of just get little bursts of, you know, little break times, little fun times, it really just helps the quality of your work, and it helps, you know, your own personal mental health. And that's, you know, always translates into your work as well. Let's see. Benefits of sans serif, you can read it. Exactly. Readability, yes. Okay, so you can see here that this course builds on concepts covered in print production and color theory. Emphasis is placed on understanding a wide range of modern print methods, including developing technologies. Advanced strategies for overcoming pre-press and print production problems are explored. Projects include multiple pre-press and production versions of print products targeted towards specific reproduction technologies and various software production preparation tools. This class is also brought to you by the letter P, apparently. But yeah, so basically this class builds on what was started in 114, which is print production and color theory. That was about 200 classes ago or so for many of you. So we're going to make sure that we do lots of review, kind of get everybody up to speed on the print process, mostly because it is kind of a unique thing, but it's also something that really hasn't been touched on much, I would say, between print production, color theory, probably, and where you are here. So don't feel like, oh no, I have to remember things from that class. I mean, it would be helpful, but we'll make sure everybody's kind of up to speed. Okay, so week 1, we have a couple learning objectives. So we're going to identify how 3 common print production methods work. We're going to analyze 4 common binding methodologies used in multi-page print production projects. We're going to create an offset print-ready deliverable that uses a spot color. We're going to differentiate between spot and process color, and then we're going to explain the importance of image resolution and sizing in print production. So this week we're really going to kind of set the stage for kind of what different printing methods are, kind of how printing methods work from kind of a fundamental level, kind of how color works in printing, how imagery works in printing, sizing, all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna, kind of like lay the groundwork this week for what it means to do print production. And another thing too, I would encourage you all to do is watch these. This, you can't really see it. I don't know why it's not showing up, but watch these little videos in the course overviews. This one's only 3 minutes, and it's a really cool, it's a really cool look at kind of the mechanization that goes into printing and just all the different parts and pieces. And printing is it's like a print factory basically for a lot of modern day printing, and it's just cool to see what happens behind all these things that we kind of don't even really think about. So that's where we're headed for week 1. But before we do that, we're going to just touch on a couple things in the course itself. First one is live session. So if you've made it here, you know how to get in the session. If you're watching via video, you know also how to get into the session. But just make sure live session links. We will be meeting Tuesday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. I have a couple conflicts over the next 4 weeks, so we're going to be just a little bit flexible, but I will give you ample time. And then all of the recorded sessions will be posted here and shortly after they're completed. So, certainly by evening, Tuesday or Wednesday, you should be able to see kind of what's been posted. So live sessions, always check it out. Other thing I want to bring your attention to is instructor bio. Here is my contact information. Very, very important that you just jot it down or take a screenshot or something. Because like I said, I'm super open if anything goes wrong to kind of work with you and be flexible. But I also can't read your minds if anything's going wrong. So please just let me know, kind of keep me posted, keep me in the loop of whatever might be going on. So, whether that's sending me an email, sending me a text message, whatever that might include, but just kind of let me know how you're doing. And then just a little bit more about me, I think we covered this in the intro, but always good to check in one more time. Okay, and another thing I want to draw your attention to is readings and videos. So as I said, this course is one that was recently, somewhat recently, rewritten. And so along with that came a whole bunch of really interesting curated lynda.com resources. So you can see here is week 1, what is print production, understanding roles and responsibilities, choosing the right types of printing for your project. Hint, hint, this will help you with the assignment for this week. Sheet fed printing, web press for long runs, thermography, considerations for digital printing. So these are all really good, short, nothing's more than 5 minutes, just video overviews of what's going on. So make sure that you do take the time to watch these and just kind of get an overview of what the printing process looks like, how it works, all these sorts of things. Especially if you haven't had experience printing anything professionally, which I'm guessing if you're anything like me, when I was a student, I had zero experience printing anything professionally. But yeah, it's important that you kind of just get a little window into the background of just what goes on and how it works, because it'll really help you when you're thinking about designing, because you have to kind of make some design considerations, kind of make some shifts in what you're doing to make sure that you're kind of designing in a way that the machine will also understand and be able to work with. So definitely check these out. And then there's there's potential that these things about spot and process color, raster and vector images, color spaces, image formats, image resolution, all might be quite important for you to check out for the assessment. So kind of keep that in mind as well. And then we also have recommended readings. So kind of how this works is that recommended is just that. You will not need it directly to, say, answer a question on a quiz or create something for an assignment. But they are just really good extra kind of skills building videos or reading resources, as this one is, type thing. So you might want to check it out as well, because you are creating an infographic, I believe, for the first assignment. So if you're a little rusty, if you're kind of like, infographics, maybe I made one of those once, but I don't remember, totally fine. Don't feel ashamed in any way. Just make sure that you are checking out the resources that are here, and make sure that you're kind of taking the initiative to kind of learn what you may not know, and kind of keep things current that way. So that's what's here. And we won't go through every week, but just make sure that you know these things, you know how to get to them. If you have any issues with getting to Lynda, just let me know as well. I know periodically it's kind of a finicky interface, but I haven't heard any issues recently, so hopefully everything is good, as good as it can be. All right, so last thing we're going to look at is just the course information. And this is under the heading of the syllabus, which you might be tempted to zone out on, but let's stick together, let's make it through together. So course objectives, I won't read these all to you, but this is kind of what you can expect to learn once this course is over, well, provided you put in the time and go for things. But yeah, I mean, we're going to get pretty deep into some pretty specific, kind of pretty specialty print, kind of print ideas, ways that print works. So you should be able to understand not only what this terminology means, but you should be able to kind of think when when one of these techniques would really be a good thing to do, and what it would mean, where it would shine, all that sort of thing. So lots of good stuff for objectives, learning objectives. These will be broken down each week. Roadmap, so kind of how much each thing on average might take you. And then this is kind of cool too, the topical outline. So kind of what we are going to be looking at each week. So this week you can see print methods and means and file considerations for print, creating print-ready files, on-target print campaigns, and then multi-part print campaigns, kind of finishing things out. So keyword here is print and all that entails. And then course task list. Again, kind of a breakdown of what discussions are going to be like, what the assignments are, assessments are, kind of a good overview of everything that's going to happen, and hopefully that's going to succeed or that you are going to succeed as you get through. All right, and of course grading. We will do that as well. So let's get out of here. So hopefully that wasn't too painful, reading through the syllabus. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to highlight. I don't think so. Okay. All right, so let's jump back into the slides. If you're looking through the course too and you have any questions about anything, feel free to let me know. I feel like we updated, I say we very loosely, the school updated this kind of look and feel a couple mods ago, so I feel like I'm on track with it, so hopefully you all are as well. But every once in a while something goes haywire in a course, so you can feel free to kind of, if anything does that, feel free to let me know. Oh, and the other thing too is if anything like daily checkpoints are not giving you the correct answer, let me know and I'll go through and make sure to manually address that if necessary. Okay, so let's talk printing, and let's talk kind of the elephant, what I think is kind of like the elephant in the room with this course. So first off, before we even get into the content of this slide, who here has had experience actually printing something in a professional way? So by in a professional way, I mean not on a printer that you have in your house, not at like your public library, like somebody hired you to do something, and part of that doing something required you to arrange for something to be printed for them. So if you're watching via video, have you done this or not? And if you're here, of course, type in the chat box, have you done it? Have you not? Okay, so it looks like represented in the chat box, we have a yes and we have a nope. I would say that's probably about the overall things I was expecting, like 50% yes, 50% not so much, that type thing. Okay, so for the yes, was it kind of fun and also kind of scary at the same time? I feel like that's every print project I have is like well, now that I've been doing it for a while, it's like 90% like, oh, this is so fun because you actually, get to hold in your hand what you designed. And then still like 5%, oh my goodness, I hope I don't, destroy something or cost someone a bunch of money, because I mostly know what I'm doing, but I feel like printing is printing is always a little iffy. But yeah, so anyway, for those of you who are watching via video, wherever you happen to fall on the spectrum, whether you are someone who has experience printing in a professional manner, or if you're, your experience printing ended with like printing a term paper in sophomore year or something. No worries, we'll kind of, cover the bases in lots of ways. Let's see, it was fun but a bit stressful sometimes. Yes. Yeah, I feel like that's I resonate with that in many ways. But yeah, so the kind of weird elephant in the room type deal with this class is that printing is totally dependent on physical materials and physical process. So more than anything else in design, printing really requires a machine outside of us and our computers. And because it does, because it's a machine that does things, or, a human operating a machine, we have to kind of take certain things into consideration, like drying time, paper quality, ink absorption, all those sorts of things. So printing is totally dependent on physical materials and process. It is a very physical thing. That said, we are in a course that's fully online and digital in its presentation. So you actually will make it through this whole program without needing to print a single thing. And with the clever world of mock-ups and such, it's even better because, you can make it look like you printed something without actually printing something. Pretty crazy. But yeah, so it's a little bit of an odd thing that we're doing advanced print production because we don't get to, as a class, go on a field trip and see a printer, see a giant machine in action, actually pass around, printed things and talk about how they were produced and have that kind of whole tactile experience. So it's a little bit of an odd thing, but luckily we're all able to use our imaginations well. And so, we can engage and use, resources that are out there. And we can also take advantage of sample books, particularly print production sample books. So sample books save the day in many ways. So you may be wondering, what's a sample book? Well, let me tell you. So sample books are free or low-cost, quote-unquote, samples of paper and printing capability. Companies use them to showcase their printing wares, and they are extra helpful to really visualize specialty print finishes, which usually have a textural element to them. So as we saw in our kind of icebreaker activity, embossing is raised, and so you can see it with your eyes, and you can also feel it with your hands. Things like spot varnish, things like foil, all those things have a highly textural aspect to them. So in addition to, taking it in with your eyes, you can take it in with your hands, you can feel it, you can, admire it in a lot of ways that's really cool, and that you just 100% can't do when you're on screen. So we're going to talk about places to go where you can order free print samples, and I would encourage everybody to do this, because it will show you in just a much better way what's going on with these techniques and these things that we're talking about than if you were just, learning about it on screen. So it's kind of like the difference between like watching the cooking channel versus actually going to a restaurant and eating. So, you can watch things, you can take it in, you can appreciate how cool it looks, but there's just something in the taste of food that you actually have to experience it. Totally the same thing with print production, especially advanced print production. You can appreciate it on screen and say, ooh, that looks so pretty. When you hold it in your hand, it's like, whoa, whole other level of, appreciation, because it does have that kind of tactile, kind of textural, sensory element to it. So I'm going to just turn on my webcam again and just show you one example of a sample book. And this is going to be one spot that we're going to go, because we're going to walk through probably for the next 10-ish minutes or so where to find these sites, and then kind of how to just go about, filling it out and such. So here's an example of one cat print. So you can see this. I'm using the word book very loosely, but basically what it is a whole bunch of cards, and each of them has an example of well, it has a, let me get one that actually looks like something. It has a kitten sitting in a cup, and since clearly who doesn't want to see that? And then it also has a list of what the paper is, and then what you can kind of see how the colors looking on it. So the cool thing is you can feel these weights. So right now weights might not compute in your head very much, but like this is a 100-pound page, and then this is like an 80-pound page, and so you can see just how they differ in feels just by kind of going through the book itself. You can see how colors look different on each kind of paper. So for example, and like I apologize because you're probably seeing little because it's a tiny webcam and it's a tiny book, but this is like felt, so you can see it has texture on it. You can actually feel it. It sounds different to rub your finger on this than it does to rub your finger on a gloss. There's a shimmer. You can kind of appreciate that. So super cool stuff with these sample books because you see kind of the variety of what's possible to be printed on. And even more, kind of going back to the color idea, you see how colors look different on a gloss versus a matte versus a cotton versus what is this guy, extra heavy linen, so that kind of thing. And it's cool too because they also print, Cat Print also prints on kind of synthetics, and so this is a 12 millimeter untearable polyester stock. And like my first thought is like, let's try to tear it, but you can't because it's untearable. So let's get out the scissors. No, but yeah, so it just shows you, a whole bunch of cool different things that are part of it. And actually, what I don't have because it came as a separate piece, and I don't know where I put it, is Cat Print also has a whole line of foils and things. So when they send you this little booklet, they also send you like a magnet that they can print on, and their foil selection, and it's really cool. So very cool. So this is a sample book, one example that you might get. And like I said, it's free, and it's really good because we can show everything on screen. We can look at Pinterest. We can, go crazy thinking. But there's just something when you can feel it, when you can touch it, when you can like both see it and interact with it, that is just it's so good. And who doesn't like mail, and who doesn't like free? I certainly like both, but so that's why you should get your sample books. Okay, so I'm going to stop this, and we're going to go for a couple. Of course, we're going to just look at a couple of these places, and I'm not going to go through everyone, but like I said, it's or I will be posting these slides in announcements so you can check, and also kind of copy paste, that sort of thing. So first thing we're going to do is actually not go to that one since we looked at that already, but Primo Print. So I'm just going to copy and come down to not that. Apparently my email wanted to come up. Okay. Where's the internet? There it is. That pulls up something. Okay, so here is Primo Print, and this is a distributor that I have worked with quite a bit. So look at this. How easy is this? Interested in seeing our products? Request a free sample pack. Oh, let's click on it. So super cool. And you just go through here and click on the form below to receive a free sample pack featuring a variety of our printed products, cardstock, and finishes. Click here to view a list of what you'll be receiving. So you can just, fill it out, anything you would like to receive. Especially, click here, see the full list. So here's everything. And this is a really cool set of free samples. And what's even better is that they send it to you in a really cool envelope as well. Well, I got it in like a gold envelope, and so I was like, oh, it's perfect. So very cool. Check it out. And like I said, these things may or may not mean much to you right now just reading it, but as soon as you get it, they'll all be labeled so you can really see what they're going to look like. But yeah, silk laminated business card with a UV spot. So cool. Hang tag. So Primo Print, super easy. You just go on there first on their site and then see, click on free sample pack. The other thing too, that when you're on sites like this, if you want to just like browse around a little bit, they often are very happy to show off what they have been creating. So, see what their capabilities are. You never know when you might, when you might just see something that's kind of inspiring, and just appreciate what the design is like. So Primo Print, that's one. Moo.com. It's very cool. And I will say the other thing too, if you are thinking about working with a freelance client or contract work or anything like that, all of these sites are also very good at short run printing. So you don't have to order, 5,000 pieces. You just need to order a little bit, and you will, or you just need to, order a little bit and they can fulfill it. I'm sorry, I'm looking and trying to talk at the same time. So moo.com. Welcome back, Lisa. Apparently they remember me. Again, look around, and everybody loves this. Tattoo artist and designer. Free samples. Where did it go? Oh, sample pack. There it is. So scroll down, paper stock, and sample pack. Kind of see what you want. And Moo is really cool because everything that they show off, I feel like, just has this really nice design look to it. So they're well-designed pieces as well as printed amazingly. So large sample pack, it's free. You get everything. So look at this, 10 products. You get a greeting card. You get paper stocks, different finishes like matte and gloss. I actually haven't ordered one of these recently, so I don't even know what they give you anymore, but apparently it's like a birthday extravaganza. But again, totally free. And then business card sample pack as well. Ooh, how cool is that? Little videos. Watch the video. So again, you can watch the video of the sample pack, or you can also order it, and then you can, kind of see what you might be getting. So cool, so cool. And again, you just click on it. So this is not a requirement for this course by any means, but it will make your experience of the course so much better because you will get to see, all these different things in action. And you get some cool design as well. What's going on? So again, you just enter your info, and you should be good. Okay, so we're going to look at one more. If I have my screen open. What should we do? Printing for less. You printing. Oh, let's just do Cat Print. Since I gave them the shout out, we'll check them out as well. Okay, so one thing that I will say about print samples is order them sooner than later, and sometimes they take a bit to arrive. So I know the last time around when I taught this class, I got everybody psyched up about samples, and then they were taking like 2.5 to 3 weeks to actually arrive in people's houses. So, I was hoping that was just like an anomaly. But because they're free, I'm not really sure what the turnaround time is for them. So order sooner than later, and then there's a chance that hopefully you will get it. You'll get it sooner than later. And actually, I might order a whole bunch of these again and just see if we can have like a race who gets it first type deal. But yeah, so again, request samples, super, super easy. Do you want the classic sample pack or the wedding sample, or do you want them both? I would say, why not? Envelope samples, sure, go for it. And then, just send it through, and it works. So kind of cool as well. Okay, so hopefully everybody is feeling appropriately excited about the world of, um, the world of free samples, printing, all that sort of thing. Look at how cool is this? And look at this. Guarantee these are all mock-ups. Yeah, wow, so cool. So much potential. Posters, stapled booklets, folders. Oh my. So cool. Okay, so I will not get distracted, but they actually just redesigned this website. So this is all totally, yeah, a new thing for me to see what they're capable of. Okay, so let's jump back into the slides. So like I said, not a necessity for this course, meaning if you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason, giving out your address and ordering things, fine, you don't need to do it, but it will make your time in class just a little bit more exciting, and you'll get some cool mail as well, and some good graphic design coming through. So definitely consider it. And yeah, go for it. Okay, so let us print. Move from the exciting world of print samples into the actual kind of nuts and bolts of things that we need to know about the printing process, kind of how it all works, and how we can be most successful at it, and hopefully least stressed. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about a couple different ways that printing actually happens. So, we all know the big printer kind of doing its thing, kind of that idea. So printers actually work in a couple different ways. And if you have a job that is going to be eventually printed, how the printer works should, to some extent, impact how you put the project together. So depending on how the printer is going to make color, depending on what sort of printer it is, all of those things are going to somewhat speak to how you kind of put the project together. So first thing that we're going to look at is this idea of 4-color process printing. So for you guys who are here in class and have chat box potential, or for even everybody who is watching via video, when I say 4-color process printing, is there anything about that you kind of say, that sounds a little like this, or like, something that you've also heard that might have 4 and also have color. So does that connect through in any way? A couple seconds, think about it. Okay, so we're getting in the chat box a little steady stream of the letters CMYK. Interesting. 4 colors, and 4 colors listed in CMYK, as well as 4-color process. And yes, you guys would be definitely on it. So also called full color printing. 4-color printing uses cyan, magenta, yellow, and black inks, otherwise known as CMYK, to produce the image. So this is a standard printing process you're going to find in publications and marketing material. So basically anything that gets printed in a large scale, kind of like if you watch that video from the overview in week 1, will have a CMYK be how it is produced using these different inks. So 4-color. So this is where about 7 different ways to name like same processes in graphic design happens in printing as well. So 4-color process printing, also known as full color printing, same thing, and it's going to use C, M, Y, and K. So here's an example of what C, M, Y, and K look like, both in the final view and then the detail view. So how these printers work is, if I zoom in, everything goes a little haywire. Yeah. Is basically that the inks are placed onto the page, well, we're going to use page loosely, so whatever sort of substrate is being printed upon, but the colors get placed down at different angles, and however the angles kind of layer together is how the color appears when you kind of zoom out. So I don't know if you guys ever had like picture lady or art day or whatever when you were going to school in lower grades, but this is a lot like the French movement in art where everything was made out of dots. So same idea, only these dots, didn't come from someone's hand. These come from a printer. So in 4-color process or full color printing, basically you have cyan, magenta, yellow, black, little dots or dot-like things at different angles get laid down and layered upon one another. And when you zoom all the way out, you don't see all those little dots. They resolve into a full shape. And this is something that's really cool. Once you get your print samples, or even if you have like a magazine or a newspaper or something and a magnifying glass, if you look at a picture that's been printed this way with something that really kind of like magnifies it, you sometimes can see this kind of grainy pattern running through it. And it's a fun thing to see, like how it actually happens with these different colors. And again, you can see what it looks like in each channel. And this is also something that you kind of see when you're working in Adobe products and you turn on the different channels filter. So for process, full color printing, CMYK. Okay, so kind of how printing works. Well, a little bit of kind of the printing history and such is that CMYK or full color or process printing is traditionally the way that all things that have specialty finishes to them were done. So we're going to break down now several different specialty finishes. And all of these kind of come under the heading of things that you can do when you're doing full color printing. So when you're printing in a CMYK method, you can do these specialty finishes. To further complicate things, printing technology is starting to become quite advanced, so that the other way that you print things, which is called digital, which we'll get into in a little bit, has the capability to do some of these specialty techniques. But for the purpose of our class, we're not going to think about that quite so much. We're just going to think that specialty kind of implies that you're going to do process printing as your method. Okay, so first kind of specialty technique is the spot varnish. So varnish comes in gloss, matte finishes, and more. You can add texture to them, such as a sandpaper effect. You could use a spot varnish to put dull varnish on a 4-color image, giving it contrast against a gloss background. Or you could do the reverse, use a gloss finish to make the 4-color butterfly pop off of the dull matte paper. You can also add varnish to create a subtle rendering of images or larger text. So basically, varnish, or spot varnish, makes one part of an image or one part of a printed piece stand out from the other. So whether it's because you make it more shiny, or whether it's because you make it kind of more matte. And because talking is okay, but looking is even better, we're just going to do a quick kind of buzz through spot varnish. And I did unshare for just a second while I pull this up. But yeah, to see kind of spot varnish techniques. Varnish. And again, I would encourage you guys to do this as well, spot varnish printing. I'm sorry, my internet is deciding it doesn't want to do anything. Um, as usually happens when you want to do something really quick. Okay, so spot varnish printing. Here are some different examples of what that might look like. You can see I just did a Google search. But yeah, so varnish, this is like what we saw in our opening activity. So, you know, flat, matte paper, spot varnish, it gets shiny, but it doesn't actually add a color. And that's kind of how the traditional varnish works. Or you could add a color as well. You know, it doesn't really matter. It's funny because there's lots of now, well, there's starting to be lots of mock-ups that have varnishes applied to them too. So I've used this one. It's actually really good. But yeah, so basically this is what a spot varnish looks like. So you can see generally it just adds a little something to the printing process, and it kind of highlights something by either making it shiny or making it dull in comparison to what else is out there. But it's really a cool thing, and I love whenever anybody shows off spot varnishes. You always have to do it kind of from the side, because sometimes if you look at it spot on, you don't see it, but then you kind of see how it's going to come through. So very often used in business cards, sometimes used in postcards, you know, things that are meant to feel fancy. But the idea is that you pass whatever you're printing, you know, through the printer. It does the CMYK, and then there's another plate that's going to come through and inject the varnish to it as well. And that's what's going to give it kind of that raised feature. So super, super cool. Okay, our next specialty technique that we're going to look at is embossing. Oops. If I can change my page. So embossing uses a specially made die under high pressure to form a raised three-dimensional impression that allows you to literally feel the design. Embossing can be used on its own or in combination with four-color printing or foil stamping. So we're going to do the same thing. Google search it up and just type in embossing. Seeing print production. And kind of show what this looks like. So you can see here, it's again like what we saw in our opener. It pushes out the paper in some pretty interesting, cool ways. Like, look at that. And it gives a whole bunch of texture to the piece. And it may or may not, you know, also include some foil, some glossiness, that sort of thing. So embossing is really cool because, yeah, like I said, you can feel it. And I think what I actually really appreciate about things that have been embossed is that when you see them from the side, you see like the shadows and things that are going with there. So how embossing works is, I guess, like the like the slide says, it's a die, and so basically what Okay, and I'm back. It's always a fun feeling when you're talking and talking, and then suddenly you realize that Zoom has Zoom has restarted itself. Um, but yeah, so embossing, pretty cool. And the die actually is like a giant stamp. And basically, how it works is it just pushes out the paper in some pretty cool ways. So again, you know, it gets printed, and then the die comes in and pops out the paper into something that really has a sculptural element to it. So again, super cool how it works. And there's actually two kinds of embossing. So you can emboss or you could deboss. And deboss is just basically the opposite of embossing. Okay. Zoom was probably telling me not to keep on changing slides, but oh well. Okay, so just recap. We have the glosses you can put on. Then we have emboss. Then we have metallic ink. So basically, metallic ink are specialty inks with fine reflective metallic particles that create a shiny metallic look to your design. Silver and gold metallics are most common, but metallic metallic inks also come in bright blues, hot reds, burnished coppers. Metallic inks are a good way to highlight a logo or a headline. So metallics are, yeah, I guess we, now I'm a little bit frightened to go look on Google, but it's okay. But yeah, so metallics, basically shiny. It gives it that metal feel. It's a little bit like a gloss in that it's kind of sets apart things, and when it adds the shine element to it, it really does bring in kind of the change in a textural manner, kind of tactile way. Okay, so moving right along, die cuts. Basically, die cutting lets you create a limitless range of contours. So from unconventional corners to perfect circles to the outline of an image or logo. A die is a custom-made tool, usually a steel blade, used to completely or partially cut, shape, or cut out a variety of shapes on a sheet of paper. Die cutting is done after the sheets have been printed, and its purpose is to create a custom printed project. So we are going to look this guy up because it's really cool and worth risking the fact that we might lose it. You might lose me. Die cut. Okay, and here is, switched over to Pinterest where things really work. Some examples of die cuts. So you can see like it's been like a kind of a heart shape that's die cutted. And what it means is it's like punched out, so like a hole punch type thing. And it works on pretty much the same process. And look at, there's a little emboss also working with it. I feel like once you start kind of dipping your toe into specialty print techniques, you start seeing them everywhere. And if you have a client who's up for it, you can start combining them together in some really cool and interesting manners. So here's another one. You can see it's the paper's actually cut out, and then you can see something underneath it, which I think, I'm a huge fan of die cuts. I think they're super cool. Look at this packaging. What? The die cut is it's cut out, and then you can kind of see the pasta through it. So cute. Good hair day is now a good pasta day. Yep. Okay, so that is die cutting. So basically, like using a stamp type thing to punch things out. Okay, so foil stamping, next technique. So this is a process where a heated dye is used to fuse foil to paper. The foil comes in a variety of colors, so gold, silver, metallic, pigment foils, holographic images, clear foils, and more. And kind of the interesting thing about foil stamping, as opposed to metallic inks, is that with foil stamping, it actually is a separate foil that's kind of baked into the paper. Whereas with metallic inks, there's just like little particles of metallic in the ink itself, and then that's applied to the paper. So foil stamping is generally slightly more expensive, but it tends to also be a lot brighter in color and impact. It just has a lot more kind of wow factor to it, whereas metallic inks can be a little bit like you're using like a gold Sharpie or something. So I mean, it looks cool, it works nicely, but it just doesn't have that kind of full opacity that often comes with using foils. But foils, super cool. Again, so we won't look at those, but I would say, well, no, we won't do it, but definitely check it out on like Pinterest. Okay, so with these specialty print techniques, You can also kind of combine them in interesting ways. So like I said, once you kind of start doing one thing, you tend to you tend to put them all together in interesting ways. So one way to do that is embossing plus foil stamping. And so basically when that happens, a heated dye is going to fuse the foil onto the paper. So bonding the foil, so the shiny, onto the paper. And then the same area is going to use another dye and then kind of pop it out to create a raised 3D dimensional image. So this is wild and beautiful and quite expensive, but totally worth it if you have that ability and if you have that kind of capability, and if the client wants to go there. It's a really cool thing. So, and even more. So there's lots of ways you can continue kind of combining the specialty print techniques, and you never quite know what you might come up with. So we're going to just pop over here as well, since I've been sharing from it so generously. But yeah, so the really cool thing with all of these specialty print techniques is that because really truly anything is possible, it kind of lets you be able to use your imagination as to what you can come up with. You have to stick with what your clients, what would communicate with your client's audience, what honors their budget, that sort of thing. But otherwise, you can, oh man, look at that. What is this happening? I see why it's happening. But I mean, other than that, it really is kind of what you want it to be, type thing. So it's a cool world to explore. And I apologize, I'm having just horrendous web issues. So, oh, good. Okay, this is working now. Thanks. Okay, so back to that site that I was pulling things from. Here are just a couple examples of different things. So you can see here, this is the varnish. Kind of what happens. This is totally matte. There's a little gloss applied to it. Lamination, shininess, spot UV varnish. And a lot of these things kind of operate on the same principles. So I want you to be aware of all this different potential that's out there, and just know how you can do it. Know that it is an option. Kind of the crazy thing is that when you're setting up a document to have one of these specialty finishes, which we're gonna talk about probably in tomorrow's session as we go over assignments and such. But how you prepare for each of these is actually pretty the same. But what they actually look like when they're printed is so different. So it's wild that these things look so complex. As the designer, we actually have the really easy job. The people that make these things have the really hard job. So we have to set it up. We give it to them. They do their thing, and then everybody basically wins at the end. Okay, so we won't look too much at these, but yeah, so specialty print finishes. So you guys are here, and hopefully you haven't fallen asleep quite yet, even though that was a lot of content, I will say. But kind of quick check-in, pop quiz time. So all of these specialty finishes that we just discussed, what sort of print production method do those all fall under? So we said at the very beginning, we talked about something, and we said all of these print production finishes generally happen if you are printing something. What is that? Is that that they fall under? And if you're watching via video, check in too. Do you remember what's the way that these things all tend to be produced? Okay, so if you're wondering, CMYK was the hint, and basically all of these techniques that we talked about are for process printing, or for color printing, or full color printing, or something like that. So kind of a good thing to keep in mind. Okay, so now we're going to talk about another way of printing. So we have full color or process printing. Next way is going to be letterpress, which is just another option of printing. So letterpress basically is a centuries-old craft of printing. It's the art of pressing paper against raised type, often with a slight to heavy debossing effect, which can create a sense of quality or artistry. It is also the go-to printing technique for wedding invitations, greeting cards, business cards, etc. So chances are you have probably seen something that's been letterpressed, and you may or may not have even, known it. But yeah, letterpress printing is kind of the original way that printing was done. If you look up the Gutenberg press, which I think might even be in one of our course resources, that actually was a letterpress. So people would load type or imagery or something like that, and then actually kind of crank by hand to press the paper onto ink and things that, or onto type and things that had ink applied, and then that was the way that things were printed. So letterpress today is very much kind of a craft artisan kind of small run boutique thing, and so it's tends to be a bit more expensive, but it also has a really cool feel to it because it feels very custom, and it just has a nice sense of handmadeness, which makes it feel very unique. Okay, so the next way of printing is going to be offset printing. And what offset is really a mechanical process where you apply layers of ink to paper with a series of rollers. So this is kind of the complete opposite of letterpress, which is very like handmade, handcrafted type thing. Basically, this is big machines, and things happen very quickly, and it also, as a result, tends to be much more reasonably priced. So here we're going to see some letters that will look very familiar. In offset printing, each roller has its own specified ink, so CMY or K. As each of these rollers pass over the page, they transfer ink and build up layers of color, resulting in complete images and text on the page once it kind of passes through. So again, with offset printing, specialty colors, printing techniques can be added as well, and it turns into kind of a good effect and impact. So we have letterpress, we have offset. So positives of offset printing, larger quantities can be printed very cost effectively. So it moves very quickly, and this is all completely mechanized. So there's just one person kind of watching the machine. Nobody has to get their hands involved. Excuse me. You can print in larger formats. So huge rolls of paper often get put through and kind of printed and passed. Then the more you print, the cheaper the price per piece. So basically, once you set up the press and hit go, it kind of does its thing. It goes. A large variety of paper with custom finishes can be used. Highest possible printing quality, greatest detail, color fidelity. Again, specialty printing techniques can happen, and the actual printing, once it's set up, tends to usually be quicker in turnaround time. Minuses of offsets. It tends to be more costly. Oddly enough, we just said it's really cheap, but it's actually expensive unless you want to do lots and lots of runs. So it's good for when you want to do, several thousand of something. So it can be more costly if you're doing a short run. There's less room for error. So basically, if you as the designer suddenly realize that, oops, I forgot something, You can stop the presses, but when you do stop the presses, it gets very expensive. So you want to make sure you don't have mistakes. So plates are costly, more expensive to redo, more time consuming to set up and press check. And most printers will have a minimum quantity that they will do. So like all the examples I showed you of sample books tended to be short run printing. So you could do like, 1 or 2 pieces. With offset printing, it's big quantities. So they generally won't do, won't do anything very small. So, and then finally, it could have issues with effects. So gradients, outlines, color on small text, etc. Just can get kind of lost, in the shuffle. Okay, so we have, this is, I apologize, this is an incredibly content-heavy session, but it's we won't have to do this again if we get this done. So we have letterpress, we have offsets, which is like CMYK, process printing type thing, and then last but certainly not least, and certainly on the up and up, is going to be digital printing. So in digital printing, an image is sent directly to the printer using digital files such as PDFs and those from graphic software such as Illustrator and InDesign. So this digital process eliminates the need for a printing plate, which is used in offset printing, and therefore digital printing can really save money and time. So digital printing is essentially like the printing that you do on your home printer if you have a home printer, or if you send it to the library. That's another example of digital printing. So basically you have information on your computer, it gets kind of beamed up to the printer that you're working with, and then reassembled and printed out on whatever their machines are. So there's no extra rollers, there's no ink passing through at high speeds, whatever. It is kind of like just a glorified home printer on a bigger scale. Okay, so pluses of digital printing. Overall lower cost. So because you don't have to have these huge machines with huge capability, it tends to be a little bit cheaper. Setup costs are lower. So again, the setting up the machine doesn't take a lot of time. Lower minimum quantities, so you could print 1 if you want to. Variable data capability, and basically what this means is if you want to do things like address envelopes, it can like change what it inputs where pretty easily. Or if you want to send out mailers, it can, customize those to residents, change wording, whatever. And then also consistency in color and print. So things are all loaded into the machine, so it doesn't, require someone to actually load ink or whatever. Good for smaller quantities, faster and cheaper. More room for error in design. If you run a couple of these files and then you realize something's wrong, it's usually a pretty quick fix to work with it. And they also work with a variety of file formats. So you don't have to, so you can be a bit more flexible. You don't have to just stick with CMYK documents, and they can read different file formats. Negatives of digital, limited size. So most digital presses can only accommodate press sheets of up to 18 by 12. So if you want a gigantic poster, you're kind of out of luck, but that's actually changing a little bit. It's starting to become more accessible, but generally limited size. In addition, it doesn't do PMS colors. So Pantone colors, which are specialty inks, they generally cannot, they can't put Pantone colors into digital presses. That said, they can match them pretty closely, but it's not a perfect. And as Pantone is all about perfection, it's a little tricky with digital. And then lower quality. So the print quality from digital presses is not nearly as refined as offset. And you also can't do specialty printing mostly, it tends to not have that capability within the press itself. So limited size, PMS, not happening as much, potentially lower quality, and no specialty printing available. Okay, so here is a great little infographic, digital versus offset, kind of how they compare as well, just for a little bit more kind of an overview. So if your head is like basically ready to explode, totally understandable. But kind of things that we covered first, just as like a recap, is the different ways different specialty finishes. So glosses, foils, emboss, die cuts, all those sorts of things. So those are specialty print finishes. And then different ways to print. We have offset, which is process printing, four-color printing. All these words describe the same thing. So CMYK. It's a large projects and things kind of walk or run through. And then the other side of that is digital, which is shorter run. It doesn't have to be CMYK. It could be RGB if you want to. And it's more kind of based on essentially like the home printer idea. Let's see, so much to learn in 4 weeks. Yes. It's so much to just kind of get in your mind, like kind of get straight. And then, yeah, like I said, how you set up documents, it's really pretty much the same for so many things, but you have to kind of know the difference in these terminologies to know kind of what's up, what's going on. So, yeah. But yeah, so then digital versus offset. And then to kind of throw a wrench in things, we have letterpress, which was kind of the original printing technique, which doesn't show up here, but just good to have that overview as well. Okay, so that was like the longest amount of information ever. But the reason that we did that is because I wanted to give you guys all a little bit of a background, because when we go into this week with our discussion, you're going to need to answer a couple things, and I want to make sure you had just a little bit of background as well. Okay, so don't judge a book by its cover. Common phrase. So this background, I won't read it all to you, but make sure you read it at some point. Basically, the background is talking about the ways a book cover really changes our ideas, our experience, our thoughts about what the book will be about, and about kind of like the overall quality, whether we should pay a lot for it, whether it's an artist book, whatever. And so when you are designing, when you are working with clients, and there's some sort of print capability in whatever you're producing, whether it's a book or whatever, you really need to think about what the experience of that element is, and how that can translate and work with whatever your client's kind of client keywords or messaging or what have you might be. So when working with a client who's interested in producing a physically printed item, it is vital that you as the designer present not only a range of images, color, and text options, but also a range of print production options so that the client is aware of just what is possible for the final product. So I think, I will say I'm guilty of this as well. I think that we tend to think in color schemes, we tend to think in fonts, we tend to think in like, which image do you like better? But when we are working with a client who will eventually print something, that printing factor is such a key part. So we really have to begin thinking about, also adding, how does this feel to you into our overall scheme of things? So how does this print, how does this print method work? Do you like this? Do you not like this? You say that your brand is all about this, so this, printing technique also mimics that. So it's just another kind of thing to be aware of as we're designing. because it does have a really big impact physically, even if, on screen two things may look fairly similar. So also practically, you have to think about kind of what fits where. So does the client have sufficient content to require a perfect bound book? If so, should it be hardcover? Should it be soft cover? Should it be saddle stitch, spiral, comb? What would make sense? So all of these different kind of very practical production techniques are things that, you may think, I'm a designer, why do I care about that? That's for people that are actually making this. In theory, you should care about it because how you design is directly, it needs to be passed on to someone else. And so you need to make sure that you are making choices in your design that's really going to help whoever you kind of pass the baton to. You're not doing things that are going to, not be possible or just be frustrating to somebody else. So all these questions impact overall user experience and should be considered very early in the design process so that you kind of know and gear up for what you're doing. Okay, so for this discussion, imagine you've been hired by a publishing company to create a 3-volume set of classic American short stories. The stories are all lesser known works of famous American authors who wrote in the early to mid 20th century. The pages have already been typeset and page size determined, and it comes out to 20 pages for each story. Each volume will have 5 to 7 stories total. So each volume is going to be 20 times 5. Yes, that's right. So around 100 to 140 pages. So in your initial meeting, the publishing representative asked for your advice regarding both cover design and physical print production. So the following 3 choices are options for print production. So high-end special edition books produced via hand-pulled letterpress. So mass market low-cost books produced via offset printing, or print-on-demand production using digital printing. So now you should all be able to say, okay, letterpress, that's like the original printing press, hand done. How does that work? Kind of get that in your heads. And then also offset. So CMYK, quick, big, big quantities, big production, low price, or digital, which is kind of print however many you want, whenever you want to, but you can't have specialty finishes and that sort of thing, but you do have a lot more flexibility as far as timing. So, you should hopefully be able to kind of filter these options through your head and kind of just think, okay, that, connect these dots in this manner. So as the designer, they are looking for you to clarify how these 2 choices might impact the physical production of the book. So how would you explain the difference in print production that might be involved in all of these choices? So this is, again, for discussion. So how would you explain the difference between letterpress versus digital? What would you describe? How would you, set those 2 things out? What argument might you make for a high-end letterpress versus a more mass market or print on demand? And is there one thing that you as the designer feel might be better? This is totally open. I'm not, there's not one right answer for what this should be. This is just like, what is your thinking process? What do you feel might be a good, might be a good kind of fit for this? And then finally, how might you use other current book examples to illustrate different print production and bookbinding techniques? What questions might you ask about their target audience, overall budget, help them clarify directions, etc., etc. So for this discussion, really think about what are the positives and negatives of each of these printing techniques, and then what would you do for this kind of limited edition short story 3-volume set. How would you guide them? What questions would you ask them to kind of further clarify how you might guide them? Would a question like, what's your budget be appropriate? Or what's the reading level of your audience? Or, would questions like that work? Or does that not matter? Like, what's kind of your thinking? So wrestle with, engage this discussion. It's a little bit on the heady side, but it's also kind of cool because it lets you really explore these different print production methods and kind of see, what might set them apart, what might what might be a good thing for the feel, etc. And as always, when you're going about these discussions and you're kind of wondering, what you should do, where you should look, whatever, look down here. It says for your citation, you might use articles that show examples of different print production methods. So, you could just Google offset print production benefits or digital print production benefits. You could, Google or Pinterest even a letterpress book. I don't even know what that would show you, but it might be something kind of cool. So, take these discussions as really kind of ways for you to explore these ideas, this knowledge, and for you to kind of see what's out there on the internet. And then also for you ultimately to kind of take everything you've learned, put it into your own words, and then put it into the discussion and share. So I always, tell students, I'm not interested in you copying and pasting off the internet because, that's what the internet says. I'm very curious, kind of what your ideas are, how you would guide a client, how your thinking is kind of coming along these lines, and just what you're feeling, what you're thinking overall. So jump in, and I've jumped in, so you can always see what I wrote as well. All right, well, I see that we are not quite coming up to the 2-hour mark, but we've had a ton of content, so I think I'm going to let us out a little bit early, so that you guys can kind of jump in and get started, and so that your brains, so my brain especially doesn't explode. So like I said, I'm going to take I'm going to take the slides that we showed, and I'm going to post them into announcements, and you can feel free to download those, and they might help you in different things that you are completing this week. So if you want to copy paste from them, that's fine with me. So be sure to check here. Oh, and then one other thing I did want to bring up, which I didn't talk about when we were exploring the course, is that we will once again be using critique in this class. So starting in week 2, we'll probably have just about a full session of kind of showing work and doing feedback. So if you don't feel comfortable with that, and if you would prefer that your work is not shown, just let me know, and I will be happy to pull it from the pile, so to speak, and just give you feedback one-to-one. That said, I would highly encourage you to have your work be critiqued, just because it's kind of fun to share, see what other people are doing. But again, it's your choice, whatever you might be. But if you are, I will say it's your choice, but you have to let me know. So if you're not comfortable with critique being done in class, if you could please just send me an email, that would be great. So I could do that as well. Okay. So I think that's all. And yeah, thanks guys for a great first session. I will look forward to hopefully seeing you tomorrow. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And yeah, should be good. All right, thanks everyone. Take care.